Okay. Great. Okay.
Okie dokie. So I'm really thrilled to be here at your wonderful centre, and I'm really thrilled that you've all come along for this course. Quite an adventure. It's like we're going to go not around the world in 80 days, but around the world in 8 weeks. And it's not just the world; it's the universe. So I thought I'd just say, let's see how we can kind of present it all together, or that this is a really deep dive into life, the universe, and everything. And it's also a fantastic introduction for beginners. So if you're new to the Buddhist path or new to Tantra, it's going to be really useful because you'll be able to find out what the criteria are, what the benefits, what the dangers are, and make really informed decisions. So it's great to do the deep dive right now because everything that we learn about Buddhism in our FPMT centers, it's from the point of view of Tantra. Whether it's explicit or not, that's actually where we're coming from. So we're going to be able to get up to speed with that. And then if you're already an established student, my hope is that it'll be able to fill in a few missing gaps, because I know in my whole journey through life and with Buddhism, there's been some whole areas that are just like a big blank, and there's never been any time to fill it in. And then you go to a course and then finally it's like, oh, I get it now. So I'm really hoping you're going to have some of those moments as well. So a little bit kind of to put it into perspective, how come I'm even daring to teach a course like this? Because it really is where angels fear to tread, you know, but I have the courage. But why I have the courage is because I'm really trying to address my own questions, the things that came up for me. At least if I can share how I worked through it with you, it'll make your path much smoother. So again, I'm not teaching Tantra, it's an introduction. And hopefully I can be a bridge between our modern world with information overload and the authentic, amazing teachings of the Buddha, and have that little connector there so that the whole tantric universe can open up to you. I was brought up a Buddhist, and then I think, so I took refuge when I was 10, very, very seriously when I was 10, and stopped killing mosquitoes from the age of 10 onwards. And then did my first initiation when I was about 16 with Lama Yeshe, the great Chenrezig initiation. And to this day, it's been the most amazing experience of my entire life. And so that changed everything. And it was great because it meant it ruined parties for me, because parties would just never cut it. They never excited me. I was always looking like, no, sorry. I really thought the whole worldly thing was a big case of the emperor's new clothes. And then also when I was 16, that's when I started doing my first Nyungne. So I did my first Nyungne with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, which I tell you what is the quintessential experience of jumping in the deep end. And absolutely mind-blowing. And so, of course, from then, that was the most difficult thing I'd ever done in my life. So after that, anything else, any other challenge, I kind of had the instinctual courage, because nothing was as hard as that first Nyungne. And it was quite funny too, because I was prostrating on some quite rough floorboards. It was up at Chenrezig Institute. And so I got this blister on my forehead from bopping my head on the ground. And so when I went back to school, I'd been kind of bullied at school. And when people saw that I had a blister on my forehead, they just thought, too weird. And they just left me alone. So it was a real protection. Anyway, so now I lead pujas and various retreats, and a lot of the beginners courses at Lungri Tongpa Center, and the balancing emotions courses of Buddhist psychology, and then this one unit of discovering Buddhism. And I did the basic program unit on the paths of mantra, so the lower tantras and the highest yoga tantra. So that was like 4 weeks full time, 6 weeks full time, and 8 weeks full time, and completed those units. So I have done the study on a higher level than Discovering Buddhism, and so a lot of the material I'm drawing from that as backup. And also, when I put this course together, a couple of years later, the London Geshe Tashi Sering put out those books, the foundation of Buddhist thought, and so the Tantra book. And I was so happy to see that the order that I'd made this course in was the same order as what's in his book. So it's like, yes, I got it right. Phew. So actually the material comes from the two Geshe Tashi Serings, the English Geshe Tashi Sering, and then the Australian Geshe Tashi Sering, who was an FPMT Lama for about 18 years. So he was the one that I did the basic program units with. So that's the kind of the lineage. And then, of course, so much comes from the Introduction to Tantra, Lama Yeshe's book. So I hope that can give you some kind of perspective of where I'm coming from. And then, so I'll let you know where all the information comes from, and then also just what's my opinion, what's from my experience, so that you can put it into context. And as we go through, I will pause the screen shares with the notes quite regularly, and I really hope you'll ask questions, because now's the time, especially the so-called embarrassing questions, the ones that, maybe they're silly, they're the ones to ask. Please do ask, because this is the perfect opportunity. We're going to be filling in the gaps, folks, so don't be embarrassed about the gaps. Okay, so I'll get up our screen share. But just before we do our official motivation, I'm going to pose a question to you. So what if you could actually become a Buddha in just 3 years? So just take a moment to let that question settle into your mind. And I mean, people think about winning a gold medal, they go into training for 3 or 4 years, don't they, at the Olympics? Have you ever even thought this is possible for yourself, becoming fully awakened in just a few years? So generally, we're used to hearing, enlightenment on average takes countless great eons, not just ordinary eons, but great eons. On the Bodhisattva path, it takes a very, very long time. When you think of the scheme of the universe, that's universes coming into existence and going out of existence. It's huge, this scale. A little caveat on that Venerable Gyatso did say, all of us now, we're not at the beginning of those 3 countless great eons. We're actually towards the completion of those 3 countless great eons, because here we are already in a Dharma center with a perfect human rebirth. So it's not like we're starting at year dot here, we are along the way. Venerable Gyatso said, we're right at the end. We're almost there. We can see the horizon. But what if it only took just a few lifetimes, just a few more lifetimes, or even just a few years? So is this possible? How is this possible? And actually, it is possible. It's the tantric path, what's known as the lightning vehicle. So it's like the rocket ship. And as with rocket ships, you need a lot of training. You need a lot of presence of mind. You have to have everything come together, because it is powerful and fast, and there's no room for error. So what we'll have a look at in this course, the unique characteristics of Tantra. So what sets the tantric approach apart from the other approaches within Buddhism? So that's what we'll be looking at today. We're going to look at what are called the 3 gates to enter Tantra. So this is how you can tell, am I ready? there's a way that we can check up. It's not just based on a feeling, so that we know what the commitments are, what the goal is, how to work out if we're ready to commit, and if we have enough support in our practice that it's the right time. We're going to look at the responsibilities of a student. So this is the one that comes first, and then how to recognize a qualified teacher. So the responsibilities of a student, what do we need to do from our own side to make sure things turn out well? What do we need to prepare before embarking on a guru-disciple relationship? And also, what background do we need? What's the support? So 3 principal aspects of the path. Sorry, I forgot to say the 3 gates to enter Tantra are, for instance, taking refuge is one of those gates that we pass through. How to recognize a qualified teacher so we can choose wisely, and so our expectations are in order. And that means that we know what's important, what the important criteria are, and what we just don't have to worry about. So a guru, for instance, doesn't have to be good at driving or cooking. They can be really bad at that, and that doesn't matter. We can release that. We don't have to expect them to be perfect in everything, just perfect in the crucial points. So how to recognize that? Then we'll dive into Tantra itself. So the 4 classes of Tantra, the different levels of Tantra, and how to tell which is which. And the approach of Tantra, which is taking the energy of our emotions, and in particular blissful energy, the energy of desire, onto the path. We may find also that you may have had an initiation, but it may have been all very overwhelming and haphazard when it happened, and you can't even remember what the commitments are or what level it is or anything like that. Now's the time you'll be able to sort it out. You'll be able to answer those questions. We'll have a look at the causes of the 4 Buddha bodies. So the Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya. The mind of a Buddha and the form of a Buddha, and all the multitudes of forms of a Buddha. And if we are going to become a Buddha, if that's our aim, we need to have the substantial causes. So what are those substantial causes? Then the path of action Tantra. So we'll look at one of the lower Tantras through the lens of the Nyungne practice, the practice with great Chenrezig, 1,000-arm Chenrezig, because it's such a beautiful practice. And it's something that normally we're familiar with, at least we're familiar with the Om Mani Padme Hum. So what the actual path is, what are the stages? And then including the structure of a sadhana, how each part of the sadhana is like a recipe, and how it all comes together. We have the recipe for enlightenment. And then we'll have a look at the path of highest yoga tantra and how it's a different recipe. It takes us to enlightenment, but it's a totally different recipe, and the flavors are different, the ingredients are different, the whole approach is different. Then in general, how come visualization works, how it works, and how we can use it, because it's an ultimate physiological life hack. I tell you, it's just you put it in and it's going to have an effect. And of course, visualization, it's not the right word. It should be imagination, because it's nothing to do with visuals as such. It's to do with experience. So everybody can visualize because everybody can imagine, even if it's not just with images. And then where the pujas and retreats fit in, and a little bit, some nice practical checklists, how to set up a retreat and the things to look out for, where you can trip over, the things to make sure you have success. And the real key to success, guru devotion. Because without guru devotion, we just know about the path, but we can't have realizations. Realizations won't come. And this is something that is often missed. And especially it's almost like a curse of the intelligent, that the more intelligent you are, the more likely you're to forget this one of the crucial importance of it, and become more and more knowledgeable, incredibly academically skilled, and yet realizations don't come. Life becomes worse, not better. So it's a real missing key of the puzzle, and it's such a subtle one. When you do have quite a strong background in Buddhism, but have missed these kind of little pieces of the puzzle. So it really is the ultimate way to approach the practice. Anyway, that's what we're going to cover in 8 short weeks, folks. I'm going to have to do a venerable Rabina, and talk double speed. The main books that I'll draw on for this course, and they are really fantastic books on Tantra: Secrets of the Vajra World by Reggie A. Ray. It's a big fat book. It's really thick, but it's fantastically easy to read. It's like a rip-roaring adventure story, and you just go for it. Just read it fast. You get a real feel for things. Rob Priest, Preparing for Tantra. I have not read this book, but Eddie, who also teaches here Discovering Buddhism, says this is a fantastic book for Westerners approaching a tantric practice. Tara, the Feminine Divine, this light green book by Bokar Rinpoche, is a little thin, very thin volume with very large print, but don't be deceived, it is dynamite. It's so profound that you could spend half a day on half a page. It's really extraordinary. It might be out of print. I know it's for hundreds of dollars on Amazon sometimes, but it is incredible. Then the English Geshe Tashi Sering from the Foundation of Buddhist Thought, Tantra, which is really put forward in that similar order that you get from the basic program, Tantric Grounds and Paths. But in a general way. And then Lama Yeshe, Introduction to Tantra. Oh my gosh. So this book, if you're ever down or depressed, this is the book for you. I've read it every now and again, like every few years I'll read it, and it's so uplifting. It's one of the first Buddhist books that I read as a teenager. I read when it first came out. Before that, I read Chogyam Trungpa as a teenager. That really spoke to my direct and kind of radical turn of phrase, I suppose. And Lama Yeshe really has that same directness, and he speaks directly to your Buddha nature. So you are uplifted. And of course, it's there on YouTube as well, with Lama Yeshe teaching it with subtitles. And so then you get his voice as well. So I really recommend that in whatever way that you can. So that's the main background. And then of course the FPMT basic program, Paths and Grounds of Secret Mantra. So this image here of Manjushri, this is actually a scan of a card. It was the first card that I got of a tantric deity, and it was given to me by Lama Yeshe when I was about, I don't know, 12 maybe. It would have been when this card first came out. And so I have, in my mind, I've fused Lama Yeshe with this image of Manjushri, like the same. This is how I see Lama Yeshe. It's really quite extraordinary. And as a child, I just fell in love with Manjushri. I had like the biggest screen crush here on Manjushri. I don't know, it's just happiness making for me. So I really wanted to share this image with you, and we'll have it when we do our prayers. And I've put it in because so that we can receive the blessing of Lama Yeshe. So let's take a moment to gather our thoughts and really think, why are we here? And we have the reasons, whatever they are, that bring us to the cushion, to the Zoom screen, and then we adjust our motivation. And we adjust it with the recipe of this prayer, refuge and bodhicitta. So let's recite this. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So let the meaning of the words illuminate your mind and adjust your heart. This is our purpose. It's a Mahayana refuge. It's for everyone. And we can calibrate our personal refuge by thinking, are you sick of it all? If you're sick of it all, that's like a nascent form of renunciation, of really wishing to emerge from cyclic existence. And if you're not just sick of it all, but you can't bear the suffering of others, you can't even bear to look at it, but there's something in your heart that goes, I've got to do something to help, then that's the Mahayana refuge. And the thing that we're going to do to help is to become a Buddha. And how are we going to do it? By listening to the Dharma and listening with our ears, but also with our heart. And then the 7 limbs, all the elements of practice. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own and others' merits to the great enlightenment. So I think we've really made this direct connection with Lama Yeshe, who is, if we ask who Lama Yeshe is, really Manjushri. And then to make sure things turn out well, offering a mandala to all Guru, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon, I imagine this is a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Yidam Guru Rana Mandala Kamniyatayami. So now think that we've put everything at the service of the Dharma. We've offered it all for the benefit of sentient beings. So now we can get started with the main topic for today, which is having an overview, really brief overview of the Buddhist path. So the greater and the lesser vehicles and where Tantra fits into that. So what are the differences between the sutra approach and the Tantra approach? So that's the overview part. And then we'll dive into what are called the 6 names of Tantra. So this is a way of bringing out 6 qualities that make Tantra, the tantric vehicle, unique, so that we can really it can come into focus what's so special about this. So the overview of the Buddhist vehicles, this is when you get the materials, mind map number 1. So the mind map is a little more detailed than what's here on the screen at the moment. But just generally, we have Buddhism, the overarching, and here is the international Buddhist flag with the colors of all the different lineages and traditions. And of course, Buddhism wasn't an ism at the time of the Buddha. It was a very organic way of teachings being requested, and then the Buddha giving teachings perfectly for the ears of whoever was there, for all the different levels of student. So it's not that just one size fits all. It's there's such an array of human beings, such an array of living beings in the universe, that the levels of teachings, we need to find the one that perfectly matches where we're up to and what we can achieve. So then generally we've heard it's kind of divided into two, Hinayana and Mahayana. Hinayana being translated as the lesser vehicle or the individual vehicle, the personal vehicle, because the aim is one's personal liberation. And the Mahayana vehicle, literally translated, you know, Maha, great, Yana, vehicle. Great meaning not better as such, but greater in size, greater in scope, because the aim is everybody. But nevertheless, over the years, these two terms have, you know, a bit of judgmentalism has crept in. And so His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in his incredibly egalitarian manner, has said, no, let's just call it the Pali tradition, Hinayana, the Pali tradition, Mahayana, the Sanskrit tradition. Because actually, when you dive in, it's not cut and dry like this. There are Mahayana teachings within the Pali tradition. There are tantric teachings within the Pali tradition. So it's what we have is a schematic to help us think about it. But in actuality, in practice, it's much more organic than that. Just like you can speak French and you can speak German, one person, you know, you just don't necessarily mix them up together. You have a clear lineage. So the Pali tradition, the goal is nirvana, liberation, self-liberation. So it's the kind of the ultimate in self-care. And we can think of it as like being on a bicycle. You know, it's oneself on your bike, and it takes quite a while to get there. But if you fall off, it's not that far to the ground. It's not that bad. You're not going to get that hurt. You just get back on your bike again and off you go. And just about anybody can get on the bike and off you go. The result is becoming a Hinayana Arahat, or a foe destroyer of all the afflictions and their seeds. So it is complete liberation from psychic existence, no more uncontrolled rebirths. And the main method is the wisdom realizing emptiness, of course, which is what's unique about the Buddhist path. What makes Buddhism different from all other approaches or traditions is this particular understanding of reality, the wisdom realizing emptiness, the understanding selflessness. So that's the view. That's what makes it Buddhist. And the main method is renunciation, which renunciation, like ultimate self-care, really, really well looking after yourself. So within this Pali tradition, you have the Shravakas and the Pratreka Buddhas, the hearers and the solitary realizers. So the hearers, they take teachings from the Buddhas. The solitary realizers have taken teachings in a previous life. They're reborn. They have it all there within their mind stream, and they just meditate. They don't need to have a teacher right in front of them. So there have been examples of this in our time. So you might have heard about the meditating Buddha in India, the meditating boy, sorry. So he was a young man, and they found him in the forest. He had very, very long hair, and he'd been meditating under a tree for years. And anyway, this was discovered quite a while ago, and so there began to be a big hubbub about it, and they had to get guards to protect him because people were coming thinking this is a, you know, meditating boy. No one ever saw him arrive. No one ever saw him get up to go to the loo. No one ever saw him eat or drink, just sitting there perfectly, looking quite beauteous. Anyway, after some time, a few months or maybe even a year, it's, you know, tourist attraction kind of thing, he was gone, and he's gone deeper into the forest. But he's like, you know, there just happened to be a little bit out from the forest, so someone found him. There are many solitary realizers that are meditating alone, going through all those deep stages of meditation, generating realizations. So Pali tradition, then the Mahayana, the Sanskrit tradition, the goal is universal Buddhahood. So it's like the bus. You're getting on the bus. It's not just you, but you've taken everybody along with you. You got the four wheels of the Mahayana vehicle, and everybody's coming along, because how can we just work for ourselves when everybody else is suffering? How can I achieve lasting happiness when all these others are suffering? So the whole impetus is very different. It's everybody. But this isn't a burden. This is actually more fuel, more power. The more people, the more beings that we are working for, the more incentive we have. So it's much more powerful and goes much, much faster. And of course, so the result is a Mahayana Arhat, or foe destroyer of the afflictions and their seeds, and right at the end, their stains. And so we call, usually we will call this, so the Mahayana Sutra vehicle. So it's the causal vehicle, the practices of the 6 perfections, mind training teachings, with the view, the wisdom realizing emptiness. So it's Buddhist, but the practices are a little different. Instead of the Noble Eightfold Path, we have the 6 perfections. So it's the view, wisdom realizing emptiness. Of course, there's renunciation in there. Can't have it without it, but it's with bodhicitta as well. So that's the extra ingredient there. And then we have Mahayana Tantra. So that's the rocket ship. And so that has the view, wisdom realizing emptiness. It has renunciation. It has bodhicitta, because it's not a separate path from the Mahayana vehicle. It's not separate. It's not a third path. It's part of the Mahayana. But it has those 3 with deity yoga. And that's what makes it a rocket ship. So the Mahayana Sutra and Mahayana Tantra, they're not separate paths. And in fact, Mahayana is not separate from the Hinayana, because Mahayana, as we know in the Lam Rim, has all those practices in common with the Hinayana, with the Pali tradition. So one builds on the other. So it's a little bit like, you know, whether you're a nurse or a doctor or a surgeon, you all learn anatomy. Everybody relies on anatomy, but then it's just how far you take it, how much more you learn. But it's not that the doctor puts aside anatomy and goes, oh no, I'm more advanced than that. And it's certainly not that the surgeon puts aside anatomy. Everybody has anatomy. And then you have the other things on top. So I'd like to read you something from Lama Yeshe about Tantra. So this is my really old copy of Introduction to Tantra, when Wisdom Publications put things out in different colored series, and it's all faded on the spine, and it's got all my notes and everything written all over it, very nicely though, in pencil. So this is what Lama Yeshe says. According to Sutrayana, the path to fulfillment is a gradual process of cleansing our mind of all of its faults and limitations, and developing in their place such beneficial qualities as love and wisdom. This path, the Mahayana Sutra path, consists of creating specific causes, behaving ethically, developing our powers of concentration, training in meditative insight, and so forth, for the future attainment of full awakening. Because of this emphasis on creating causes for a future result, the gradual approach of sutra is sometimes known as the causal vehicle to enlightenment. Compared to this gradual sutra approach, Tantrayana is a far speedier path to enlightenment. Although tantric practitioners do not neglect creating the same causes as the followers of sutra, they take the future result of full spiritual evolution as the very starting point for their path. To put this in other words, the tantric yogi or yogini, as these supremely skillful practitioners are called in Sanskrit, learns to think, speak, and act now as if he or she were already a fully enlightened Buddha. Because this powerful approach brings the future result of full awakening into the present moment of spiritual practice, Tantra is sometimes called the resultant vehicle to enlightenment. According to Tantra, perfection is not something that's waiting for us somewhere in the future. You know, if I practice hard now maybe I'll become a perfect Buddha sometime way into the future. Or if I behave well in this life and act like a religious person, maybe someday I'll go to heaven. According to Tantra, heaven is now. We should be gods and goddesses right now. But at present, we're burdened with limiting concepts. Oh, men are like this, women are like this, I'm a certain way, and there's nothing I can do about it. This is why we have conflict within ourselves and with one another. All this conflict will dissolve as we train in the tantric point of view and recognize that each man is a complete man and each woman a complete woman. And furthermore, every man and woman contains both male and female energy. And in fact, each one of us is a union of all universal energy. Everything that we need in order to be complete is within us right at this very moment. It's simply a matter of being able to recognize it. And this is the tantric approach. So, to summary of these Mahayana Sutra and Mahayana Tantra, then, that the cause of Mahayana Sutra, wisdom, realizing emptiness, and bodhicitta, there's no danger in this vehicle. You can't stuff it up. Practicing the perfections, the 6 perfections, even if we just practice ordinary generosity instead of the perfection of generosity, it's still going to benefit. We're removing the afflictions and their seeds. We become a Mahayana foe destroyer. It's called the causal vehicle, cause and effect, and it's step by step. And we can see it laid out. We gradually cleanse our faults. We gradually develop love and wisdom, and eventually our faults get less and less. Our qualities become more and more until we achieve buddhahood for the benefit of everybody. And of course, the main practices, 6 perfections, Tonglen, thought transformation teachings, mind training teachings. So then Mahayana Tantra has wisdom, realizing emptiness, and deity yoga. So really using, it's not just imagery, but the power of identity and changing that, using that to propel us to enlightenment. And also utilizing not desire actually, but the energy from desire, using desire energy. And really we are in the desire realm, aren't we? And everything to a deep instinctual level is propelled by our desires. This is how we create samsara. So we use that energy. So it's like in martial arts, you don't necessarily go up against the opposition. You use the energy of the opposition to disable the opposition. What we're removing is the afflictions, their seeds, and the stains. So that means not just the afflictions, not just the causes of the afflictions so they no longer arise, but we're removing the stains, the ordinary appearances. We're removing the appearance of inherent existence. The result is the 4 complete results of a Buddha. So that means a Buddha's mind as well as a Buddha's body and abode, the environment, the activities, the resources, all the manifestations of a Buddha. It's a resultant vehicle, the future result now, taking that future result into the present. Okay, so just before I go on, so the future result into the present, the easiest way that we can think of this is fake it till you make it. So we're all used to that. Maybe when you're a kiddie, you played superheroes and that was really fun. You know, you practiced being what you wanted to be. You practiced being an astronaut or practiced being a nurse or practiced being a scientist or an engineer or, you know, whatever it is. Funnily enough, I practiced being a teacher or a governess. I never once, ever played mums and dads. Never. Not from like a small child in kindergarten. I never played mums and dads. I just didn't really play doctors and nurses. I was always playing teacher and I completely forgot until coming back to Lungri Tumpa Centre and being terrified to lead classes. And then I went, hang on a second. This is what I wanted to be. Anyway, so you fake it till you make it. You pretend. We put on our superhero cape. We pretend we have all those powers. We feel fantastic, and it gives us all the power to go about in life. We fake it till we make it as adults. We pretend we're grown up. We pretend we're confident. We're educated. We put on our, you know, our status and whatever, and we go out into the world and we hope to goodness everyone will believe the show. Sometimes we have imposter syndrome, don't we? Because we know it's a show. We're faking it till we make it. Adulting, you know, there's a whole thing about it, isn't it? We also dress for success, don't we? You dress for the job that you want. You go to your job interview and you dress for that job. You don't dress as the poverty-stricken person that's desperate for a job. You dress as if you already have the job and you're a boon to the company. And what does that do? That makes us identify with that, and we rise to the occasion. So it's there as a life hack. So we're using that power. It's so, so incredible. So we dissolve our ordinary concepts of ourselves and we start identifying with all of the potential as if it was already there. So another way that we can look at Tantra then, it's the continuity. I'll go into what these mean in a moment. Tantra is also the texts, it's the meaning, and the practices. So the continuity of our mind, the indestructible nature of our mind, that's what's continuous. The mind stream, moment to moment, it's never broken. We may be unconscious, but you know, we hear the alarm, we wake up because there's a continuity there. And what we have now is a continuum from our unawakened state, our sleepwalking state, to an awakened state. So it's not that we magically turn into something else. It's not that I'm bad now and I'm going to turn into a good person later, which I'm not at the moment. It's not like that. It is a continuity. It's a process. And it's a continuity of basis, path, and result. You know, and they're inextricably together. And when we achieve it, that whole continuity, the arrow of time, which to us we experience as linear, that just disappears. There's no more arrow of time, but the continuity, that unbroken experience, it's still there. So here's something from Bokar Rinpoche about this continuity. So that's this light green book, Tara, the Feminine Divine, page 47. Just one paragraph. What is Tantra? The word Tantra means continuity. In a literal sense, the term refers to the nature of mind, the mind beyond any psychological elaboration, in all its purity. This notion of continuity underscores that the nature of mind is not something new to obtain, something that could exist now and could not exist now and would come into existence at the end of the practice. Continuity is present at the base, what we are now, at the path, and the result. It's present the whole time. Whether it is veiled or relieved, revealed, it's always there without discontinuity as the union of emptiness and clarity. The continuity of emptiness and clarity. So you see what I mean about this book? You could take that and you could spend a long time on it. So then we have the texts. So the texts, they're the practice manuals. They have a provenance. We can trace it back to the Buddha. It's legit. The provenance is legit. There are countless sources that we can investigate. But don't think that the text or the practice manual is the thing. And in fact, those texts are often written as practice manuals, which means they're quite dry. Just like if you've got a practice manual of how to operate the microwave, it's not written poetically. It's just written factually, bit by bit, and it's written in a particular schematic order. But what we experience doesn't necessarily come in that order and is very different from the dot points in the manual. So there's the texts that's a schematic. Then there's the meaning, us experiencing that, and that's a whole nother thing. And that's where we need to have the confidence of the manual to actually enter into the experience and experience that process of the basis, oneself, the practice, and the result. So that's the difference between intellectually understanding, memorizing the manual, knowing which category everything fits into, and actually doing it, actually not just hearing about it, but experiencing a transformation in your own life, your own mind. So a lot of the practice manuals can seem quite dry or quite boring or quite short, but they're there to fertilize the heart for us to actually do them. And we'll know that we have the meaning Tantra because we become more happy naturally. So if in our Dharma journey we've got progressively more miserable or more stuck, we're missing something, and it's usually this. We've got the smarts, the intellect, but drawing it into our actual practice deep inside and experiencing that transformation hasn't happened. And the practices, what the actual practices are, utilizing desire, utilizing the energy of desire. So desire and that energy, it's not naturally virtuous. It doesn't naturally lead to good things. Just like energy and electricity, nuclear power, whatever it is, it's not naturally good. It has to be harnessed for good. What harnesses all of this energy, the practices utilizing desire, what harnesses that is the foundation of the three principal aspects of the path. So that's what makes it virtuous. So this might be a bit mind-blowing to you to hear, oh, Tantra is not naturally virtuous. Actually, Tantra is not even unique to the realm of Buddhism. There is Hindu Tantra. There's even tantric practices within esoteric Jewish practices. There's Tantra within Sufi practices, utilizing those same energies. So what makes it virtuous, i.e., to bring happiness, ultimate lasting happiness, what makes it Buddhist is the three principal aspects of the path. Without that, it won't get us to enlightenment, and it won't result in happiness. So let me just see if I have one more reading, and then I'll open up for some questions.
What are the three principal aspects, please?
The three principal aspects of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view. So that's what we'll look at next week in depth, how they form the foundation of tantric practice specifically, because they are practices in common with Mahayana Sutra, and they are the foundation of Mahayana Tantra. So before I go on, are there any other questions? Abelardo, did you have any other questions?
Well, yes. If I may share very quickly the essence of my story. In 1987, I had the privilege of inviting His Holiness Dalai Lama to visit Costa Rica for the first time he had ever visited a Latin American country. And we had a conference called Seeking the True Meaning of Peace in 1989. So I had 2 years preparation for that. He suggested then that we set up a Tibetan Costa Rican Cultural Association, and he asked a very high Lama to be our teacher. And this teacher gave us many tantric initiations. First I had the Kalachakra with His Holiness, and then Yamantaka and many others with this other one. Then I went into a period of my life where I realized I had all kinds of afflictions. And anyway, so I started thinking that I started in reverse. So lately I decided to go back into the gradual sutra path. Now, well, I completed this 1.5 year diploma course with Tibet Center, Tibet House in New Delhi, India. And the Geshe there who taught us, who's director, said Tantra is something that is secret, and forget about Tantra. You have to complete it. And Buddhahood will be many, many lifetimes ahead. And so, you know, that was very discouraging.
That is with all respect, that is a classic Geshe statement. So of course, that, you know, the Geshes, they do Buddhist university from the point of view of being a renunciate, having the vows of ordination. And our Geshes in the Galupa tradition, it is the approach of the Galupa is from here to enlightenment. So it takes the point of view of the basis, the ordinary person, and we go step by step to enlightenment. But that Lam Rim book, we've got it. There's a subtlety there, and it's the practices in common with the lesser vehicle, the practices in common with the middle capacity person, the practices in common with the bodhicitta, Mahayana Sutra vehicle, and the practices of Tantra. So all of our Lam Rim study is from the point of view of Tantra, but the way that we go through it is step by step. We're kind of led through a story of the Lam Rim, which is the ultimate carrot and stick, isn't it? This way, that way, this way, that way. But it's from the point of view of Tantra. It's not from anything less. And The Geshis, of course, they teach the step-by-step Lam Rim. And then some of them, the Lorumpa Geshis, go on to Tantric College and do all of the prerequisites to be able to teach Tantra and to give initiations. And that requires doing the 3-year retreat and getting a sign from the deity that, yes, you can pass this on. So not all the Geshis do that, only a very few. And then we, so blessed, so unimaginably lucky, have met Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. We're in their centers. The very fact that we're here means we have a connection. We're picking up from last time. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche always teaches from the point of view of Tantra. And why? Because he sees the urgency. You know, we're right on the cusp here in this life, on this world, where everything's become open to us. Tantra is in the public domain. It's out there. The world's about to become uninhabitable. Our perfect human rebirth will no longer have the support of a planet. And just about everybody, you know, in our, well, not just about everybody, but in the affluent world, we have this opportunity. So the time is ripe. The urgency is immense. The sentient beings are innumerable and they're screaming out in suffering. And that's the context that Rinpoche is teaching in. So it's a big step. But this is the context, and we are so fortunate, because not everybody on the Buddhist path even gets this context, because the tantric path can give us that result. So that's why it's really important to have our teachings, since we are in an FPMT center and we do have this connection with Rinpoche, that we bring light to this connection, which is Rinpoche wouldn't be teaching us from this point of view if it wasn't possible, and if it wasn't the very best possible thing for us. So please, Abelardo, take heart. And don't forget that nuance, that all of the Lam Rim is practices in common with those 3 scopes from the point of view of Tantra. So thank you, because that was a thing. I'm not sure when I was going to get to that, but that the context, it's important. Okay, so Reggie Ray from Secret of the Vajra World says, what stands in the way of our goal of spiritual maturation? It's only our mistaken concepts of ourselves, our rigid and defensive ego structure. What is an example of where the Buddha nature is at work? In fact, the Buddha nature operates in all people all of the time. It's said even that the universal experience of suffering is a manifestation of the Buddha nature. It's the message that our egoic versions of reality are inadequate and cannot bring about the lasting satisfaction or comfort that we crave. How does the Buddha nature move us forward? Through revealing to us the shabbiness and hollowness of the ego that we're trying to maintain, through showing us the inadequacy of the ways in which we try to allay pain and control our lives. So this one's very Secret of the Vajra World, Reginald A. Ray, part of those that it'll be in your PowerPoint notes. So really what he's saying, that even when we experience despondency all the way to great emotional turmoil, that is a sign of our Buddha nature trying to burst forth. That's our Buddha nature at work, saying, hey, what you're doing now is inadequate and it's not working. It's out of step with reality, and that's why you're in pain. So we just have to learn how to read the signs. Were there any other questions about this general overview before we go into Tantra in particular? Oh, thanks, Snay. Snay's put the book up in the chat. Any other questions at all?
Miffi, may I ask you to repeat that one more time? It's the first time I'm hearing that. Wow.
So that any any distress that we feel from just being despondent, you know, like Abelardo was feeling quite demoralized about things, to just great emotional turmoil. Any pain, any suffering that we experience actually is evidence of our Buddha nature at work. And what it's showing us then is that our ordinary way of going about things, it's out of step with reality, and it's bringing us suffering. So the pain that we experience is our Buddha nature trying to burst through, going, hey. So any suffering we experience, we go, aha, that's evidence of my Buddha nature. What am I missing? So it's a good sign. And I think I've often talked about this too in the classes on healing anger, anxiety and depression, that depression and anxiety they're the message that something's wrong. They're not the thing that's wrong. And they're the message from our Buddha nature saying, hey, pay attention, and pay attention right here. So it's a good sign. And the tantric vehicle is a way of a lightning quick way of allowing our Buddha nature to burst through. And, you know, it uses not just, I mean, classically it's called utilizing practices containing desire, but it also uses suffering and pain, just like the thought transformation techniques do. So let's have a look then. Let's dive into this, the 6 names of Tantra. And so I have a slightly risque way of remembering them. So you know how people make acronyms and things? So our acronym is a bit of a poor drawing of it. Secret Mr. Vajra and his method canon. So this is all on mind map number 2. And so I've drawn a slightly outlandish, slightly risque and suggestive drawing here to help us remember the 6 names of Tantra. So what they are: secret, yes, Tantra's secret. I'll go into these in a moment. The Mr, so mantra, resultant vehicle, Vajra, all the various methods, and the canon of the Vijayadharas. So when you're trying to figure out, well, what is it about Tantra that's so special? This is it: secret Mr. Vajra and his method canon. So he's the little spy there with his trench coat, and he's on the method canon that's shooting out method everywhere in a kind of ejaculatory way, and he's got this thunderbolt, the Vajra. So let's have a look what these 6 names of Tantra actually are. I hope I don't get in trouble. So the secret part, and yes, you're absolutely right, Abelardo. Tantra is actually known as secret mantra. And it's secret. Why and from whom? To keep us safe. So just like when we're learning to drive, you know, there's levels of skills and abilities. So Tantra, for many, many years, was supposed to be secret to make sure that it doesn't cause harm, because remember, it's not naturally virtuous. It's just energy. We have to make it virtuous. It's secret from an unsuitable vessel. An unsuitable vessel is somebody who doesn't have the empowerment. So you cannot talk about the specifics of a particular practice to someone who hasn't had the empowerment. You can talk in generalities, and unfortunately there are many specifics out there, and you'll find that there are books that say this book should only be read, you know, commentaries on high circuit practices, this book should only be read by someone with the initiation, and it's up to us to honor that. There's a whole lot of stuff out there on the internet. Certainly don't believe everything that you read. It's really important to have a providence and check the sources. So secret from an unsuitable vessel means that we're not naturally born being ready for Tantra. We are naturally born being ready to be a good person, being ready to practice love, compassion, being ready to develop our wisdom. None of that's secret. We may or may not be naturally born ready to become parents. That's debatable, isn't it? But we're certainly not born ready for Tantra. We have to be made ready. And that means going through a process that's controlled, and it means taking vows that keep us safe, and it means having a firm foundation, an education, so that we don't stuff up. So it's a little bit like, say, the instructions for making an atom bomb. For a long, long time, that was all secret. Why? Not because it's like some secret society, but just to keep everybody safe and so it doesn't get into the wrong hands. But now, in our information overload age, everything's out there, and you can look up the schematic for how to make a nuclear bomb on the internet, and it's all there, and a whole lot of other worse things as well for anybody to have. So that means that it's all out there, and now we are relying on the kindness of others to stay safe. So that's one part of it, and that's why many of the lamas have gone out on a limb and taught the tantric paths and grounds in the public domain. And it's quite a heavy thing to do, because that's like sharing the schematics for a nuclear bomb in the public domain. There's a great responsibility for that. So what this course is sharing the general things. So it's like getting a general schematic, but no details how to put it together. So you can't actually build the bomb, right? So it's okay. But nevertheless, there's a huge responsibility there on all of us, but especially on whoever's teaching it. The other meaning of secret is that we should keep our practice secret. It's not something to advertise about. It's not something to destroy by by showing off, by bringing in the worldly dharmas of pride. No one need ever know. You don't have to be ordained. You don't have to be a monk or a nun. In fact, the whole tantric vehicle, the tantric teachings were started with the Kala chakra. So Abelardo, you've really made an amazing amount of merit, a store of merit, by requesting Kala chakra initiation for your own journey. This is incredible. So the Kala chakra teachings were given for lay people. They were given to a king. Here I am. I've got all the stuff. I've got all the women, the wealth, the power. But how do I make this worthwhile? Give me something quick, easy, that I can use everything, because I'm not going to give up being a king. So that's what it's for. It's for us.
But
lay people.
But I had the generation stage of the Kala chakra, and they never told me what to do in the completion stage. Robert Thurman recently gave me the sadhanas, so I have to find out what to do with them.
That's right. So your guru will tell you when it's time to go to the completion stage. So you don't have to worry. You can ask your guru, though.
Well, I don't have a guru right now, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, you've got 8 weeks, Abelardo, to get everything together, to know exactly what to do for your next step. So you've got to hang in there to the 8th week about the guru devotion. So we keep it secret also, our own tantric practice, meaning secret from anyone who hasn't had the initiation. So the people who have had that initiation are our tantric brothers and sisters, and we can talk about our practice with them, and we can't ever reject them. They're here on the journey with us. We're a community. But we don't talk about our tantric practice kind of outside of school, so that we don't tarnish it and taint it with the worldly concerns like pride or status. Also, so that we don't get demoralized very quickly, because when we're very new at something and we're all in the first flush of enthusiasm, we tell someone and they have a bad reaction, they go, oh, what are you doing that for? And we just collapse. And it happens because we're new. You've got to protect yourself from that, because we're such baby steps here. It's so fragile. We've got to really look after ourselves. So keep it under your hat, folks. the other thing too is that if you do have success in your practice, there's nothing like success to elicit jealousy and spite. So you can actually tell that you're going along well because people start being really jealous of you, really competitive, really try to bring you down. Because a natural response, a natural worldly response to success, when we see success in others, is to take affront because it rubs our own noses in it. It rubs our noses in the dirt of how hopeless we are. So anybody else's success, huge jealousy and competitiveness can arise. So you also have to protect yourself from that. And it's so that we don't harm others by giving them the wrong idea or incomplete instructions, mistaken ideas. You know, if we're working with the subtle physical energies of our body and we just decide to make some stuff up as we go along and run an experiment, it's just like running a chemistry experiment. And if you ever got a chemistry set as a child and went, oh, I wonder if I put this in and this in, what'll happen? And then boom. I mean, this is what happened to Oliver Sacks, amazing Oliver Sacks. You know, he was given a chemistry set as a child and he blew up the whole back half of the house, the kitchen, the outhouse, and everything, because he was having so much fun with the chemistry set. So whether you understand Tantra or not, if you do it, it will work. And you don't want to blow up everything accidentally. So that's why it's kept secret, so that we don't get into trouble. And as we've seen in, you know, California and places, when you have all sorts of weird tantric sex going on, that doesn't lead to enlightenment, that leads to more samsara. So if you're missing some ingredients, like the 3 principal aspects of the path, all of those tantric practices end up in more samsara. So that's very hard to get out of that then. So that's why it's kept secret. So then, okay, so we've got secret. Then the next one, mantra. So I like this little image, lifting the veil from ordinary, all grayed out, our normal kind of polluted vision, to a clear vision, a tantric vision, lifting the veil of inherent existence, of ordinary appearances. So mantra is a Tibetan word, and it means mind protection, protecting the mind. And a very specific thing that we're protecting the mind from ordinary appearances and conceptions of self. Mantra, I think translated literally means spell or utterance, but that's kind of the process that it's referring to. So mantra, mind protection, is protecting our mind from ordinary appearances. So we don't see the faults of people. So this is like Lama Yeshe's pure vision, why everybody loved being with Lama Yeshe, because he made them happy. Why? Because he wasn't looking at your faults. He was looking at your Buddha nature. And so everyone just was like, oh. And even when he got really fierce, you know, it was like, oh, give me more, like a horror story around the campfire, you know, delicious. So Lama Yeshe didn't see impure appearances. He saw pure appearances, and we felt that and were able to kind of, you know, rise to the occasion. So when we are identifying with all of our purity and our virtues, we're protected from being reactive. We're protected from retaliating. We're protected from all the afflictive states of mind. They don't get a chance to arise. So the unique object of abandonment for Tantra or mantra is the stains, the ordinary appearance, the appearance of inherent existence. So bodhisattvas, you know, on the Mahayana Sutra path, they have a direct realization of emptiness, but they still see the appearances. They don't believe them, but the ordinary appearances still arise. But with mantra, there are no ordinary appearances. We're in a pure realm. You're all emanations of Manjushri. All the sounds are the sounds of the mantra. That's it. No ordinary appearances. So normally in Mahayana Sutra, when you're meditating on wisdom realizing emptiness, there's nothing that appears. There's no ordinary appearances. It's purely focusing on that emptiness. But with mantra, it's called an affirming negation. It's not a non-affirming negation where you dissolve everything into emptiness. It's an affirming negation where you have an appearance as well as the wisdom realizing emptiness simultaneously. So the appearance, the pure appearance, appearing while empty. So it's very powerful. And affirming negation. So the absence of inherent existence as well as a positive appearance. And what we're doing is we're protecting all of our consciousnesses, all of our sense consciousnesses, sight, sounds, taste, touch, and the mental consciousness. Nothing is ordinary anymore. And when nothing's ordinary, then our responses aren't ordinary. They're extraordinary.
Sorry, what are the appearances of?
You and me. You know, I'm looking at you and I see Abelardo, a man sitting on a couch. That's ordinary appearance. But with the non-ordinary appearances, I would be blissfully realizing emptiness, that there's no inherent Abelardo, and I would be seeing you as Manjushri, and we'd be having a really rip-roaring Manjushri style conversation. And all of our words would be made of light, filling the sky, twinkle, twinkle. Okay, so then the next one, resultant vehicle. So the resultant, remember, it's practicing the future result now. Fake it till you make it. So when I was a child, I loved Wonder Woman. Actually, I saved up some money and bought a Wonder Woman doll. That was the first and last time in my life I ever saved up some money. And I was like, I don't know, 7 years old or something. Oh dear. Anyway, so Wonder Woman, you know, you have all of these qualities. You think about all the qualities. You just want to be like that. And so then you play. You pretend you are. So this can, because you're identifying with something different, it doesn't actually matter whether it's true or not, because the effect is powerful. You get the effect. So it's similar, like, you know, when we go to the movies and it's a scary movie and you're going, oh, I'm not looking, and you get scared and there's a bang and you have some adrenaline, popcorn goes everywhere. We know it's not real. It doesn't matter, does it? It affects us. In fact, we pay money to go and do something that we know it's not real. Why? Because we're affected. We get scared, we get moved, we weep, we cry, we have an epiphany, we go, oh my God, the movie changed my life. And there are movies that change our life, right? So even though at the beginning it's on the level of pretend, we get the effect as if it was real. Physiologically, we get the effect. Emotionally, with our imagination, with the opening up of possibilities, it changes everything. So the practicing the result now, it really is the ultimate life hack. So how we do that is we have all of the renunciation, the wisdom realizing emptiness, the bodhicitta, and we put all of that into the practice of deity yoga. Dissolving our inherently existent I into emptiness because it's empty in reality. wisdom realizing emptiness, experiencing great bliss because it's naturally blissful, and through the power of our compassion, arising as the deity to benefit others in the best possible way. So that's the deity yoga. So I'll give you an example of how powerful this can be. So have you ever been walking down the street and there's like the people collecting money for whatever charity or something or other, and they're there going ching, ching, ching with their little can of coins? So I have on occasion crossed the road so that I don't have to go past them and give them any money. Like, how shameful is that? You know, can't even practice generosity of just a few cents. But, you know, so that's the ordinary things like, oh, you know, don't hassle me. I don't have enough for myself, let alone anybody else, you know, really self-centered kind of thing. So then, but, you know, as we're approaching the person with the money, we might think in those few steps, we get over our affliction. We think, oh yeah, that's right, this person's suffering a bit more than me, I'll give something. And so we just give something just to get them out of the way. So the merit in that, it's very small, isn't it? But you know, at least we've done something. We haven't created negativity. Then we might be going along and start thinking, oh yeah, no, actually I know what it's like to be homeless. No one should go through that. I'd love to give some money for the homeless. So you put that in. See, already your heart's getting bigger. You've got energy. You're inspired. You can do something. You have a sense of agency. You feel good for the rest of the day. And the homeless get some money. So that's kind of it's still ordinary. It's still ordinary kind of, you know, virtue. But then if you have the bodhicitta motivation, then it becomes vast. You go, oh yes, of course. My whole purpose of my life is to help others out of samsara and into enlightenment. And here's an opportunity where I can help others and I can practice generosity. And by me giving this money, may I make a connection with all of the homeless. May they be in my first circle of disciples when I attain buddhahood. May I achieve the perfection of generosity and thereby become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Ka-ching! So by now you should be walking quite slowly to the person with the tin. So then that merit that you create, that lasts all the way up until you actually become enlightened. It's not just gone. It's not just there, you know, once the person stops being homeless or once the money's used. Because the motivation's that big, from here to enlightenment, it will last until enlightenment. Unless, of course, you get angry and destroy it, but that's another matter. But, you know, the potential is it to last. So that is good. If we get to that, that is good. But wait, there's more. You can, from the tantric point of view, it's not an ordinary street. You're in a pure land. That's not an ordinary person. That's Manjushri, spontaneously manifesting so that I can make merit in my human form. And I am Manjushri, delighting in the play of appearances, in the activity of bodhicitta. And it's not just money, but it's all the resources of a Buddha that I am sharing and getting back. Just like breathing. So that's extraordinary. That's got all the rest of it in there, but it's even more supercharged. And so then if you drop the money in, I wonder what that person feels. You know, what's the connection like, even just on this ordinary level? So you can see that's how it supercharges it. Fake it till you make it. There's a huge amount in there. Okay, then the Vajra vehicle. So here is actually a double Vajra or a double Dorji. So we see these often they're on the brocade in the front, on the front of the throne that the Lama sits on. So what that represents is actually like a Vajra seat. So instead of being vertical like this, we imagine it horizontal, and we are offering a Vajra seat to the teacher. And so this Vajra represents a lightning bolt. So you can see it's very stylized. So just like when we draw lightning and we have that little funny zigzag shape, and that means lightning. Lightning doesn't look like that, but it means lightning, and we know that's the symbol for lightning. So this Vajra is a symbol for lightning, and you can see the flames of the lightning there. And so what Vajra or lightning vehicle means, this thunderbolt, diamond thunderbolt. Vajra or means diamond, like the adamantine, diamond, the adamantine vehicle. So it's an analogy using that diamonds are the hardest, the most pure, the indestructible, most superior natural material. And what it refers to is that indestructible purity of the mind. So that indestructible purity of the mind can never be broken. It's always there. Even in the most hellish states, even when we've stuffed up everything, it's always there. It cannot be broken. So there's no reason to be depressed. We can't be broken. It's just the veils on top. And so the Vajra vehicle also refers to how we practice the antidotes. And that leads us to the next one, which is the methods. All the very many skillful methods that are employed. And so we use all of our emotional states on the path. So instead of them just being reactive and uncontrolled, we use them. And instead of them being energy in the service of affliction, we use them in the service of bodhicitta. And instead of squishing them down or trying to dismantle them, like we do in the Mahayana Sutra vehicle, instead of putting in the antidotes to make them less, we take the energy and we use the energy. So it's like training wild horses. You've got to be careful here, but the energy is extraordinary. So I like this little thing. It's from a kid's movie about all the different types of emotion that are kind of at civil war in our head most of the time, but actually they can live harmoniously. And so normally we're taking the energy of desire, but we can also take the energy of anger. So, for instance, the energy of anger has when it's not driven by affliction or reactivity, it's that fierce concern, fierce protection. So if we can release all of our afflictive stuff of reacting and what about me, everything that comes from protecting this self, if we release all of that, we can use that anger energy, but now it's in the service of bodhicitta. So it's using all of the thought transformation techniques that we study right towards, in the greater scope. We get used to the psychology there in thought transformation, using everything on the path, good, bad, indifferent, boring, scary, angry, sad, whatever it is that's happening, we use it on the path. So in Tantra, we also do that. So it makes it that much quicker. We've already got the energy. So you can use your depression, you can use your anxiety, you can use your craving and longing, the whole lot. Whatever's there, whoosh, let's use it. The other thing about this, though, what it means is that we are literally using the energy within our body, our physiology. We're using that feeling of adrenaline. So if you've got an adrenaline shot, boom, you jump out of your chair. You can't help but do it. So how are you going to jump out of your chair without harming anybody and using that burst of energy on the path to enlightenment? It's going to take some preparation. And the same with desire energy, which is even harder to use. How are you going to use all of that manifest desire energy in your body, blissful energy, and not just get sucked into wanting to experience it, but use it on the path? You need incredible presence of mind, incredible determination of what our goal is. You know, being driven by bodhicitta and nothing else. So with that, utilizing the practices that contain desire is actually manipulating all of the subtle physiological energy in your body. So your body's like a machine, and you use that machine, and you get very, very good at it. So there's nothing haphazard about this. It's not an experiment, folks. When you get those tantric practices, and you have the initiation, and you get the practice manual from the Lama, and then you get the training, the ear whispered lineage of, well, this is how you do this bit and this is how you do that bit. You get the experience of the guru, because just like driving a car, you don't want to learn to drive a car by reading a book. You need to have someone show you. So I learned to drive a car by reading a book. And then in my late 30s, I actually got some driving lessons. So I didn't have a car. My practice was at the driving lesson. It took me a year. I had one week each, once a week for a year. That would be my driving lesson and my practice. And I had my list, how to start the car, do this and the gear and then the thing, and then take the foot off the pedal and then check here, check. Okay, off we go. Like none of it was intuitive. But I'd read up a lot about driving. I'd read up about traffic flow, about the intuitive movement of, the peloton, of how traffic goes, all of these things, but none of that prepares you for getting in a car and driving. And you don't want to be in a car with me if I've just learned to drive from a book. So the methods in Tantra, they are there in the practice manual, but actually putting them into practice has to be in a very controlled environment with skilled instructions. And if you don't have those skilled instructions, if you just go willy-nilly into it, oh, let's do this, and oh no, I don't like the sound of that, I think I want to do it this way instead. That is like stuffing around with the car, with the rules, going, oh no, I don't want to abide by, I'm going to drive the way I want to drive. Well, you might, but you're going to get some responses. So you have to be very careful, and don't think just because we can't at the moment see any specific instructions, it doesn't mean they're not there. It just means they're not in the public domain. So this is where we can get caught out, because we just think, oh, if it's not on YouTube, it doesn't exist. Actually, there's vast universes and bodies of knowledge that only exist in the minds of human beings, and especially great artisans and things, it's just with them. Language, it's just with them. And when they die, it's gone. It doesn't exist anywhere else. So tantric practice is like that. It is with our gurus. And we need to really follow the instructions. And when our gurus are gone, if we haven't absorbed those instructions and practiced it and become artisans, it's gone. So that's also why there is a degree of urgency, because we have this generation of artisans, don't we? Tantric artisans. And, it's right on the edge there as to whether the generation dies out or not. So you can also be quite confident that it's not a haphazard system. It's not just something mysterious that you feel your way through. Maybe it's this or that. It's very specific. The instructions are there. It's comprehensive. And if we haven't come across something like that, that's good, because those those specific instructions should be secret until they are handed to us when we're ready and have been made a suitable vessel, having had the initiation, done the retreats, all those things. So like Abelardo, you're asking about, you know, completion stage practices. The completion stage practices are quite different from generation stage. The manual instructions are quite different, and they're much more specific, working with the actual physical energies in our body. And so you won't be handed those instructions until you're ready. And who will know when you're ready? Your guru. But don't worry, you've got from now till 8 weeks to figure out how to put that into context and who your guru is now. Okay?
It has a virtual guru. There aren't many gurus in Costa Rica.
I know, but what you're talking about is humans, not gurus. The guru is a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one aspect of guru, but you know, there's a lot more to it. But that means you'll have to come to our next exciting episode, Abelardo. Before I go on to the last one of these 6 names of Tantra, because it will blow your mind a little bit more, what questions do we have about these? The secret, the mind protection, the resultant, the Vajra, the adamantine purity of the mind, or all the skillful methods? Anything at all that's come up? There's got to be questions. Come on. Who? Anyone raising their hand? Anyone waved at me? No? Oh yes, Snee. Oh, hang on. Got to ask you to unmute. Hang on a sec.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Thank you for such a fascinating first episode. I also can't wait for all of them. But you know, and you'll probably get to this later, Miffi, but it just came up in my mind because, you know, usually when we hear about Tantra, it's always like the union of emptiness and bliss. So I was wondering, like here, when we talk about method or union of emptiness and clarity, like how is that being translated, sort of that bliss idea?
So the method is the bliss. So it's always everything. You know, what makes it Buddhist is the view. So the wisdom realizing emptiness. And so that's across everything. It's always that. Without the wisdom realizing emptiness, you know, or selflessness, it's not Buddhist. So that never changes. The view, I mean, of course, there's tenet systems, but generally speaking, the view never changes. But the methods change and are vastly different according to what vehicle. And so when we say that the union of bliss and emptiness, that's actually referring mostly to the highest yoga tantra, which is actually where the whole Lam Rim is taught from. Not just the point of view of tantra, the lower tantras, but from the point of view of highest yoga tantra. So that's why it's a bliss and emptiness, that union. In practice, what that means, that the bliss is all the different methods that we employ to use our emotions. But from a highest yoga tantra point of view, it means the physical bliss within one's body that is similar to orgasm, but 1,000 times bigger. So you use that, and it's like nuclear energy. And you use that to make the mind a very powerful, blissful entity, one with meditating on emptiness, and you just burn up the afflictions.
Okay.
You burn up the ignorance.
Okay, so that it is a fit. So so you are meant to, as you progress, generate that a real strong feeling of bliss.
No, you don't generate that. That strong feeling is a chemical reaction. In fact, that feeling of bliss is a natural. It's a side effect.
Okay.
So we just get that in ordinary life. When you're in the zone doing something, when you're really involved in something, a feeling of bliss arises, of excitement. It's just natural. When you're really focused and meditated, it's not just flatlining, it's inherently joyful. And so I've found this in the creative process, that there's a huge amount of effort that goes into focusing and everything, but then when you are focused, then there's this kind of joyousness that's there. So that is a side effect of the effort and the concentration and the process. So what happens is, in Tantra, that you have that bliss that arises as a result, and then you have to use it. So, and we'll get to this, because it's not as easy as it sounds, is it? Because it's so easy to just get sidetracked into, oh, this is nice. And then what? Oh, whoops. Lost it, wasted it. Now all it was just using up my good karma. So I'm just trying to find in my notes, there is, so when we talk about mind protection, removing the ordinary appearances, it's through something called the non-dual yoga of profundity and clarity. So the non-dual is the complete dismantling of a sense of self, a self-sufficient, substantially existent self. We've dismantled it. And then there is no separation between within and without, between me and between you. So it's non-dual. And then the profundity and clarity. So the clarity refers to the appearances. And the profundity refers to the empty nature. And this is why all of the visualizations, why all the time in the instructions it said made of light. So it's not because light is pretty, it's because light is a placeholder for emptiness. So it's all in there. And as we get better at the practices, then more bliss will arise. So we have to know how to use it. And when we're in a small vehicle, there's not much danger. When we're in a large vehicle or a rocket ship, there's a lot of inherent danger in there. So, when we're on our bicycle, I actually was going out with a blind guy for a while in Melbourne, and he would go on a bicycle being blind, and sure, occasionally he'd crash and everything. I don't know how I'd go if I was driving bicycle with blindfold on, but he could ride his bicycle with no sight whatsoever and still get around, no problem. But, if you're in a bus, if you're driving the bus, it's a bit more responsibility. And if you're in a rocket ship, baby, there's no room for error. So the more of this energy that we have when we're going on a bicycle, even though it's like, whoa, we can kind of contain the energy, we can contain the experience. But when we're in a rocket ship, to contain that experience, we have to have a huge amount of preparation.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I noticed while we were talking, someone posted a question in the chat.
Oh, okay. Let me have a look. What's the chat say? Snake, could you read out where it is? I can't quite see where the question is.
It says from Pickpin Go, why Tantra practice has much joy than Sutra practice, as Sutra also has joy from pliancy of meditation, equipoise.
Yeah, that's right. So that's that joy, that the bliss that arises from single pointed concentration and from attaining calm abiding. So anybody, that's not even a Buddhist practice. That's not exclusive to Buddhism. Anybody can attain single pointed concentration. And there is a natural pliancy and bliss that arises from that. It's, it is a blissful state. So that's in non-Buddhist vehicles, that's in the individual vehicle, that it's in the bodhisattva vehicle, but motivated by for a different reason, for, you know, bodhicitta. Within the tantric vehicle, there's a lot more specifics that happen of actually being able to manipulate the subtle energy channels in your body. So it goes into far more detail, and it uses and manipulates that bliss that's an actual physical manifestation to change the energies and the way that everything goes in our body, to physically change our body into the body of a Buddha. So it's like the big picture and then zooming into the microscopic detail with all the detail.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, there you are, Pick Pingo. Hello, yes.
Yes,
And so
yes.
of course there's lots of bliss and joy on the bodhisattva vehicle as well, but it's more generalized. What the tantric vehicle does is takes the physical manifestation of it and uses that, not just the heartfelt manifestation.
Thanks.
Oh, it looks like you're in the four wheels of the Mahayana vehicle actually anyway. That's great.
I'm not
Okay.
driving, so it's okay.
Oh, that's excellent. I'll look up what those four wheels are. I always forget, and I'll let you know. You can bless each of your wheels. So then, lastly, the name, the canon of the Vijayadharas. So this will really blow your mind, because the canon of the Vijayadharas, the life Vijayadharas, so they're like the long life knowledge holders. So Tantra has long life knowledge holders. And one explanation about this is that you're taught practices to extend your life so that you live way longer than normal, and also so that you can remove any life obstacles that would prematurely end your life, so that you can complete the tantric path in this one lifetime. So that's one of the extraordinary things about Tantra, that you have these supportive practices. So the three main benefits of the canon of the Vijayadharas, the teachings of the long life wisdom holders, three main benefits: ordinary accomplishments, receiving the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and quickly completing the practices. So the ordinary accomplishments are things like being able to dispel life obstacles for oneself and others, clairvoyance, knowing what's in the hearts of others, exactly how to help them, extending one's lifespan for tens, if not hundreds of years. And so, for instance, White Tara practice to extend our life, and all the many skills and methods used in Tantra on the path. So that's the ordinary accomplishments. Receiving the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, being cared for by them. So when we do these practices, it's like we open the door so that we're open to the help of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Now, they're here all the time. They're here right now. But we're so disconnected. So what we're doing from our side is opening that up. And in a real general day-to-day way, when we're practicing, we receive help. It's not just us alone. We couldn't do it if it was just us alone. It's all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas there all the time. Their whole purpose is to help us, cheering us on, giving us everything that we need, all the information that we need, all the experiences that we need. We also start relating to the Bodhisattvas, the deities, because when we do the initiation and we arise as a deity, we become one. So they help us that way. When we do everything as a deity, it's so much more effective than as a poor little old me. Pity me, as Lama Yeshe used to say. You can't do anything when you're feeling like that. But when you feel like a superhero, even when someone you love says, I remember one boyfriend saying to me, oh, Miffi, you can do anything. And I went, oh, wow. It took someone else telling me that. So when we have the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas like that, it gives us that energy. But also, I got time to tell you a little story. They will help us in life. And Tara got me a taxi. Like, and this was quite amazing, actually. So there was this wonderful gig that I was going to. Pearly, my lovely Dharma friend, Pearly Black, incredible voice. She was singing. It's very, very rare that I go out. It's like everything's Langri Tampa Center, and maybe once or twice a year go out somewhere. So we went out to this gig, and everybody kind of went home a bit early because there's school the next day, whatever. And I was like, no, I'll stay right to the end and I'll get a taxi on the way home. Anyway, so the gig ended and I went out, and I hadn't realized, but it was Halloween and there were no taxis anywhere. It was way past the last bus. It was like, uh-oh, 2-hour wait on the phone for a taxi. So I started meandering my way through West End where we were, thinking, well, I'll just walk home. It's going to take 2.5 hours, and I have to lead a course in the morning at 9 a.m. But, I have to get home to lead it. So whatever, I have to walk. I had these ridiculously high heels on. I was like, oh, geez, I'm going to have to walk barefoot through the streets. This isn't so good. But I was really determined I was going to get home. And if I was going to suffer, well, you suffer for your art, don't you? So I'm meandering along. I got completely lost. I'm walking through all the side streets. I don't know which way's up. And I was like, Tara, you have to help me because I've got to lead a class tomorrow morning and I have to get home, and I don't care if it's going to take me all night and my feet are bleeding, but I don't know which way to go. These poor sentient beings are going to come to class. You've got to help me. And suddenly it's like I got to the end of the road and there was a T intersection, this big, massive road. And filled with people and cars, and a taxi rank at that end, and a taxi rank at that end, and huge long queues at the taxi ranks, and everybody drunk and belligerent. And I'd kind of come out the middle in this T intersection. So I looked that way, no taxis, lots of people. Look that way, no taxis, lots of people. And then a taxi pulls up right in front of me, letting off someone to get out. And I looked in, and it was this lovely lady. And I said, oh, are you free? She said, yes. I said, okay. So I just waited until the person paid and got out. And then she said, hop in. And so I hopped in, and the people at this taxi rank are going, whoa, you jumped the queue, and they're running towards me. And the people at this taxi rank are throwing bottles at me going, what are you doing? You stole our taxi. So I just got into the taxi. Thank you very much. Click the door closed, and off she went. Where would you like to go, dear? And she took me home. So I'm sure. I mean, I wish I could have seen her in all of her green glory, but Tara got me a taxi the moment I asked. It's extraordinary. So I'm sure you have your own stories too of but it takes so much to get to that point of asking from your heart. And it wasn't a big deal asking. It was just sincere, really sincere. So I think that's what praying is, in Buddhism, is just being very, very sincere with nothing else to contaminate it. It's very simple. And the moment I asked, Tara asked. So that's receiving the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We will all the time if we open up ourselves. And then quickly completing the Bodhisattva practices very quickly. So the formula is, instead of 3 countless great eons on the Bodhisattva path, you can actually attain Buddhahood with the tantric practice in 14 lifetimes. It's nothing. Just by keeping your vows and commitments. Not even necessarily by realizations, just stick to the rules. Just keep your commitments and your vows in 14 lifetimes, you can achieve Buddhahood. But it can happen also in one lifetime. So this is the quote, because it's not one whole lifetime from when you're first born and you live, what, 70, 80 years. It's from when you first meet the Dharma. So my mother, Inta, who started Lungri Tanka Center, who brought me up a Buddhist, and who, when she died, I tried to step into her shoes. She met the Dharma. She had me when she was 40. She started doing yoga, hatha yoga, at the age of 42. She met Prakanti Palo and the Pali teachings when she was 44 years old. And then she met Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche when she was 47. So she came across the tantric path at the age, Mahayana at the age of 47, and then had her first initiation at the age of 50. So the quote is, in one short lifetime of a being of a degenerate age, and that's us, from the first initial practice of Tantra until the attainment of Buddhahood. So from that first initial practice at the age of 50, you can still, in that short time, attain Buddhahood. In that short lifetime, in this modern world, as a woman in the 20th century, you know. So this is really extraordinary. And it's not just that, okay, so you can actually, from meditating, going into serious retreat, and not just doing calm abiding meditation, but calm abiding and deity practice, then it supercharges it. Then in just a few months, you can become enlightened. But, you know, usually you go and do a 3-year retreat or something like that, or it might take a little bit longer, but that's feasible and it happens. But there's plan B. So plan B is that if you haven't managed to become a Buddha in this one lifetime whilst alive, you can during the death process. So I'm sure something very extraordinary happened with my mother. So she died at the age of 71. And I think a couple of years at the age of 69, Lama Zopa, I remember her saying to me, oh, Lama Zopa Rinpoche said I should do completion practices now. And so she wasn't sure whether that's because Rinpoche could see that she was sick and going to die soon, or if she was ready to do the completion practices. So she kind of had a bit of self-doubt. But Rinpoche said, time to start doing completion practices now. And so she did. And she had an amazing death. She died at home at Lungri Tanka Center. We left the body there for about 2.5 days until the sign of the blood came out of her was mouth rather than nose. The whole time that she was lying there, it didn't smell, it didn't stink. It smelled like roses. It smelled like roses in the room. And everything was very peaceful and calm. And she was in meditation when all the coarse consciousnesses shut down, and it's just the fundamental mind. Meditating beyond conceptions for 2.5 days. No breathing, body stone cold, still lots of heat at the heart, beautiful smell in the room, and a very fine, rarefied atmosphere. Very subtle, but powerful. And so we had a sign up in the lounge saying, you know, if you're going to cry, you have to go out in the backyard because Inta's in her death meditation at the moment, so do not disturb. Which is a bit confronting for new people coming to the center. Like, whoa, what have I walked into here? So of course, you know, we'd have lots of outrageousness in the backyard going, whoa, and then be all calm. And so then once the consciousness left and a little bit of blood came out of the mouth, that's when the heart area stopped being warm, and it's where there was a little smell of staleness in the room. That was it. So at the same time that this was happening, we're able to request Lama Zopa Rinpoche to do prayer. So we let Lama Zopa Rinpoche know. And he happened to be staying in the same hotel that His Holiness the Dalai Lama was staying in. And so he talked to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So His Holiness and Rinpoche were saying prayers the whole time while she was in this death process. So it was a good death. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche said it was a good death. So this is how we're helped. We will receive the help. And we will quickly complete the practices. If not in this life, then with just enough practice under our belt, we can do it in the death process. And it's not us even alone by ourselves in the death process, but it's our gurus guiding us, like massaging the energy of our mental continuum into that direction. And if we have the merit to just relax and trust from all of this background and all of this practice, it'll happen. It'll come to fruition. So we don't even have to have been born into it or grow up Buddhist, but it's from when we first meet the Dharma and first start practicing, we can do it. Okay, so in summary, what have we covered today? The vehicles, all the different vehicles, Hinayana, Mahayana, Pali tradition, Sanskrit tradition. The methods may vary, but the view doesn't. The lesser vehicle, the main practice is self-care, renunciation. Mahayana Sutra, the main practices are all of those in common, but with bodhicitta, with this big-hearted motivation, big responsibility. Mahayana Tantra practices are all of these with deity yoga as well to supercharge it. The basis is the foundation of the three principal aspects of the path. And so that's what we're going to look at next week. That's what makes it Buddhist. That's what makes it safe. And then we've looked at the 6 names of Tantra that illustrate all the unique qualities of Tantra. The main unique object of abandonment in Tantra is those ordinary appearances. We are escaping the tyranny of ordinary appearances. So we're not just removing the afflictions, which is coming to all the vehicles, or their seeds, but the stains, the appearance as well. So the reading, maybe take a picture of this with your phone. It'll also be in the PowerPoint notes as well. Meaning of Tantra, so that's on the FPMT notes, page 34, and Pabonka's advice on page 37. There's a summary, there's the mind maps 1 and 2. Next week, we'll look at the 3 principal aspects of the path, the responsibilities of a student and a teacher. Now we must dedicate. So we dedicate that everything that we've listened to, all of our aspirations, even all of our doubts, everything on the path, good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, all of the merits from this effort, we dedicate them so that we can quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow, and may that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. So thanks everyone. You gave me 2 hours and I managed to go over. So please take all of the inspiration and the words and everything along with you for the week and come back with any questions. Enjoy the readings, take care, as Geshe Zopa says, take care of each other, and see you in a week.
Quick question.
Thank you.
Are the readings in the materials that will be posted?
Yes, they are. They're all there.
Okay,
There's the readings, the mind maps, the summaries, and the PowerPoints.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Sheila. And I hope
you.
you
Thank you, Miffi. Thank you.
enjoy
Thank you,
some
everybody.
rest.
Thank you, Miffi.
That was wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
Good
Good night,
See you
everyone.
next week.
Thank you.